So I was asked just moments ago why I do these things. That's because everyone in my town doesn't really like me to hang around. Because most of the company I keep are dead people. So. But in fact, my truthful answer is because I wander around, I pick up some ideas, I meet people who suggest stuff to me, and I pointed out that at one point many years ago I was at the Leverett Library, and they were talking about the rattlesnake gunner, and did you know about this, that, and the other, and Hitchcock Lake, you know, back when the dinosaurs walked the earth, and one thing led to another, and sure enough, I ended up on an airplane with a geologist who may or may not have had a license, and took photographs and put it in a book. So, you know, you never know what you're going to come up with, and here I'm already ahead of the game, because now I know that, you know, this phrase will never leave my head, which is, feel free to use our library, but would the gentleman please lift the seats? I'm going to have to probably set that up just right. Manny, you're a scholar and gentleman, thank you very much. You will live in infamy from now on. I never forget, and you will never forgive. Good Lord, what's that say? That has nothing to do with me. Three can keep a secret. The brains of the outfit is not here. I'm here because of my good looks. In fact, but the better looking one, the one with actually the brains coming out of her, you can see because her eyes blink and she does that. That's Mrs. Mayer in the back. She actually knows where we're at. Stuff like that. She also remembers which books I've written and what I may just be presuming to have written. So a couple of nights ago we were in Keene, New Hampshire, because we do this a fair amount, and someone asked me, I think this is a really rude question, to be honest, just in case you're thinking of it. And we're going to go to question and answer quickly, because I run out of spit very fast. Well, that's not true either, but I write fiction, so I can lie. But I was asked something to do about my latest book. Well, I had no idea how to answer that, because, of course, I always have a latest book in here that nobody knows about. And then I have another latest book that's with editors in New York City, but still nobody knows about it. And then, of course, I have the quote-unquote latest book, which is the one you actually could read, but you think I can remember that? So I'm groping around trying to remember the title, and someone said, well, what's the subject matter? And I went, oh, please. I barely remember who wrote the bloody thing. So I just made up a title. I can't remember what it was now. I think it was a great title. Margot tells me it was a real dud. But it had nothing to do with anything I ever wrote. So there was this kind of, you know, deer in the headlights look from about 100 people out there, and we moved along. Oh, I'm so sorry.
And then, you know, there's the whole thing of London, Connecticut, not far from here, in that whole Supreme Court Justice Eminent Domain ruling, in that area that I assume is going to make some kind of headquarters out of it. They decided not to. Meanwhile, that whole neighborhood is displaced, and it's just moved. It's just so heartbreaking.
So in your heart of hearts, you'd like to kill someone. You want me to be your chill. Yes. Subtle, real subtle. Yeah.
It just seems like there's a lot of material like that.
Well, there could be, and in fact, it's interesting how not necessarily that issue, but issues very parallel to that come to play quite forcefully. Who among us saw Chinatown, the movie, many years ago? Half those people are probably dead now, but that movie was all about water rights. You know, so you can get quite compelling on some of these issues. And I know Vermont, of course, I have sort of always based, at least at the very beginning, out of Vermont, because it's Vermont law enforcement, and my guy would get fired if he started fooling around in this state too much. But the issue is interesting, and my problem is too many ideas. I never have a day where I kind of go, oh golly gee, I can't think of anything more. It's usually trying to pick and choose among the ideas that which one I want to do now. And part of the reason for that is that I do write about everyday things. So beware what you wish for. Who else? Yes, in the back.
I just finished the book Padman, but it didn't have a conclusive ending. The man is still searching and going into people's houses. Do you ever do a part two?
Now I'm here to drive you completely mad. It's clearly working. No, I love stories without. Well, to say they're stories without end is overstating. But I love loose ends. When have you ever had some sort of interaction with a bunch of people, maybe a dinner or some event, some situation where you have left at the end of whatever it was and thought to yourself, God, who was that fellow's? I never caught the name, or that was damn, I forgot to ask, so and so such a. You always have these sort of dangling things. Well, welcome to my world. and to have, Miss Marple gather everyone together in the parlor and absolutely attribute an endpoint to every little detail just strikes me as completely unrealistic and frankly a little boring. So I don't mind sort of stirring your ire and frustration. I won't ever end a book where he threw the bomb into the room. No, I'll let it go off one way or the other. And after all, I got to keep employed. But I have no problem at all letting people slip away, and I've done it. I can think of Gatekeeper ended that way. I can think Skeleton's Knee ended that way. On and on and on. People slip out the back door, and will we see them again? Probably not. Curiously, however, since you mentioned this particular guy whose name is Dan Kravitz, keep reading. It's one of those situations where even I thought, this is a really kind of cool guy. Actually, no, I've turned things around. He first appeared in an earlier book, and that's why he came back into Tagman. But he's now so compelling, and I love the relationship I just made up on a whole cloth with his daughter. And of course, Margot will keep pounding on me until I do this anyhow. We'll bring him back. There was in the very first book, Open Season, in chapter 2. How I remember this stuff is beyond me, but I have children too, but I don't remember that. But there in chapter 2, Joe Gunther goes to the house of a woman who just became a widow, and he actually has to break that sorry news to her, and she pantomimes her grief process during the length of that chapter. And we meet her at the beginning, and we say goodbye to her at the end of the chapter, and you never see her again. And I got a lot of feedback. This was book number 1, 1988. And I got a lot of feedback from people saying, "Oh God, that character. When are we going to see her again?" And the answer was never. And that goes to the other thing. Again, we go to the social interaction. You meet someone and you go, "God, that was so interesting. Did you get his name?" "No, I thought you got his name." And boom, gone. So there you are. I think it's fun to really go to that effort, and then just make a gift of it and walk away. We don't need to round everything off all the time. That's my world. Yeah.
I've read all your books. I own them all. I brought.
God, I knew somebody did.
It took me 2 days.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Well, that was cruel.
I used to work for the district attorney's office for 8 years, so I really do enjoy these books. I get a lot out of it. My problem is that a couple that I don't have in your earlier books, like Open Season.
Yeah.
I had it and I loaned it and it never came home.
Right.
And I tried to order it at the bookstore in Greenfield, and they said they can't get it.
Well, you can. You can't get it in hardback. But you can absolutely get it in a nice trade.
Paperback.
Paperback. Oh yeah, you can get that because I publish it. Because I've moved with the times, but early on I used to write on the legal pads with a pen, and then 3-ring binder type things, or those spiral school books. The interesting thing to me, once again, goes back to editing, that if you write in longhand or using an old-fashioned typewriter, which is another period I went through. I still have 3 typewriters. I have to explain to kids what those are. You write, of course, and then you change your mind a little, so you scratch that out, or you draw an arrow, or you shift. You might even cut and paste. Okay, well, that's fine. Dickens did that. Seemed to work out okay for him. But what I noticed was that during the editing process, my eye, which is trained like all of yours are, you expect a clean page, okay? And if you will, translate into musical notes. You want to be able to read that clean sheet of music so that once you've got the sort of poetic momentum going, you don't want that interrupted or jarred, including by visual stumbling stones like arrows and scratch outs and scotch tape. The computer's invention, to me, solved that problem beautifully, because if you do want to move something or scratch something out, it disappeared. There were no visual hiccups. So that clean sheet of music was always available on that screen. Having said that, the weird part is that I'm old enough and set in my ways enough that when I edit, I always print out and edit with a pencil. I enter those changes in the computer, I print out again, and I edit with a pencil. So I'm still killing trees like some. But I do use the computer, and I'm not looking back. I mean, I got one of the very early computers that you could get because I saw the value of that editing technology. Kind of like a good logger will go out there and recognize that in some cases you want to use machinery, in other cases you might want an animal or this saw or that saw, and you take a look. If you can afford a new widget that will up your production and lower your effort, you're going to take it. We were laughing. Margo and I were talking about some neighbors or somebody, and they came to the country, and they really how wonderful it was, and so they were going to get animals to do drag their logs out of the wood, and they were going to chop them up with hatchets and put it in the wood stove and be just like the locals. And I was laughing, of course. I said, any woodchuck with his salt is going to sell his firstborn for a chainsaw. Give me a break. It's all going to be about trucks and machinery. Because we're trying to make ends meet. So I jumped on board, and early on when I was doing the history books, in fact, I had to work all over the United States. And I had one of the early computers, but they were about that big. So I had it in a case on a big strap, and I was also photographing archives because I was doing sort of freelance historian's work. So I had a copy camera set up in a box I built myself with a carrying handle and everything would come apart and get all sandwiched. And it could even go into the belly of an airplane and be manhandled and survive. And then, of course, I had the camera equipment. And it just went on. I was looking like a dromedary from airport to airport to airport. And half the time, of course, they'd lose something or whatnot. And I would set up shop in hotels across America. And during the weekends, the cleaning staff would knock on the door and sort of say, well, would you like a room service? And I went, nah. And of course, I would be standing at the door saying, nah, I'm fine, just give me a towel or something. And of course, you see these tripods and these lighting setups and the copy cameras and this strange thing called a computer glowing in the dark. I'm sure they thought the CIA had just landed. I was doing it all over the southern United States and elsewhere. It was really